Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hangouts with Visionary Leaders, enlightening and engaging discussions with visionaries, thought leaders, futurists, and change makers that open us up to a new narrative for our future. This is actually part 2 in a 2-part series that we're doing on visioneering a new future, and we're going to be discussing the concept of conscious business. I'm your hostess, Lisa Ingalls. I'm a visionary coach and author, speaker, and consultant, and you can learn more about me and my programs and services over at www.innerstatecoaching.com. And while you're there, feel free to pick up my free report on the 5 steps to creating radical change. So we've entered a new era of human possibility. Individual as well as collective leadership is critical, as I see it, as we navigate our way through old and outdated paradigms that no longer serve us in moving towards an expanded life and a freer future. Humanity itself is on a precipice of a new era of peace, of sustainability, of health and prosperity, but really the question is, how will we, or can we, as a collective, choose to commit ourselves to peace and end our struggle and disharmony? And how are we going to do that? Those are the types of questions that we bring to the table in this show. We're really interested in exploring innovative ideas through engaging discussion that can help us to birth a new humanity. Now, as I said, this is part 2 of a 2-part series with MarcGafni, who was with us last week and is here again this week, as well as Ifat Cohen. In our last episode, we spoke with my 2 guests about digital intimacy, and today we're going to be discussing conscious business and take a look at a new paradigm for success. So if you weren't here last week and you didn't get to meet Marc then, let me tell you a little bit about him. My guest, MarcGafni, is the co-founder, together with Ken Wilber, of the Center for Integral Wisdom, which is an activist think tank dedicated to evolving and articulating a shared global framework of ethics, arrows, and meaning, and in partnership with leading thinkers and change agents working on key social issues. Marc's work in the world is focused on collectively reshaping key pivoting points in consciousness and in culture. And we also have our wonderful, wonderful Ifat Cohen, who's well known here in Google+, the Google Plus go-to gal. So I'm super excited to have you both with us once again for Hangouts with Visionary Leaders. Welcome, Marc, and welcome, Ifat.
Thank you, Lisa. What a delight to be with you. What a delight to be with you, Ifat. Yes.
Hello, Ifat.
Hi, Lisa. Love being here again.
I know. So you guys, I think we had an awesome conversation last week that just sort of set my head and everything going on digital intimacy, and I know that we're going to weave in this concept of digital intimacy into conscious business. There's a lot out there now, or you can even find on Wikipedia this their definition of conscious business, but I think that we're sort of looking at it in a different perspective here, maybe not, but really one of the things I was reading of yours, Marc, that I got lit up about is that you say that business is awakening to itself and becoming conscious. And you, it was something I was reading that you had written online. I think it was a talk you had done at Esalen, where you were talking about how business has really come from this place, maybe unconsciously, but has actually been a huge force in lifting people out of poverty. And although we might have these ideas of, oh, like corporate business, it's a bad thing and all of that, it's actually, you look at it and you go, well, it's actually done some of these good things, albeit unconsciously. But now, as you say, we're sort of moving into an era where business is awakening to itself and becoming conscious to itself. So sort of just love to begin the discussion there with you and Ifat.
Well, first off, Lisa, you just summarized better than I could what my core position is. So, so well done. Well done, well done. And did I apologize, did you just turn to Ifat? Did I miss that last word? Did I just jump in?
No, no. I turned it to you.
Okay, I wanted to make sure I want to make sure. Yvonne is kind of, she's a little bit ferocious underneath that, lovely exterior. So I don't want to get in trouble with her. So I think you've got it exactly. So let me just try and kind of restate it and kind of find the essence of it. Michael Moore made a documentary, and Michael, if you're watching, your documentary sucked, right? And you're a very nice guy, And essentially what he did is, in his documentary, which is Capitalism, a Love Story, is he actually reintroduced demonization, evil, in the same way that 30 years ago you would have, people making documentaries, for example, against homosexuality. They'd have priests coming on and saying that homosexuality is evil. That was kind of very common 30 years ago. Michael Moore had 3 different priests, right, on his documentary saying that business was evil. And the term he used was evil. Not bad, not corrupt, evil. And it's kind of shocking, right? And, and Michael's a very good documentary maker. And it was, creative. And I actually watched it with my partner, Kate Maloney, right, in Center for Noble Wisdom, to kind of think about how we're going to make our documentaries. We want to thank Michael for great documentary trips, great documentary filmmaker. But the content was so shocking to us that it's part of what inspired us, right, to begin, right, Success 3.0, which is a kind of movement towards trying to revision, right, capitalism and success. Now, the other partner in this story is a person who's been a mentor to me, right, and kind of looking at these issues, and then we've kind of started a creative conversation together, who's the co-board chair of the Center for Noble Wisdom, John Mackey, who's, I would say, a kind of successful grocer. He started, Whole Foods, and has really kind of engaged the capitalistic world, very effectively and very powerfully. So that's just kind of a little bit of a background. Now, let me just try and hit it directly. Directly is as follows. Capitalism is not evil, right? And the kind of Northern California idea, right, that corporations are evil, or the Hollywood portrayal, right, of the corporation as malevolent and evil that happens in virtually every major Hollywood blockbuster that talks about, right, business, right, is tragic and misguided. 1. 2. Why? Well, because, right, business is the force that's actually done more than any of the great religions together, right, to actually directly lift people out of poverty, right, to actually create schools, to actually create education, to actually create, opportunities, right, for people to move from being radically underprivileged, right, meaning no education for girls, meaning destitution, meaning infant mortality, right, meaning every manner of brutality that we all hold abhorrent in our liberal values, right, actually, what's actually up-leveled reality and allowed for, right, transformation and social mobility in a very, very real way has been capitalism, right, which is the voluntary exchange of ideas. Now, clearly, right, there's what we might call crony capitalism. So crony capitalism, or corrupt capitalism, right, is capitalism of the kind exercised, let's say, by the robber barons, right, in America, which was corrupt, which was, often violent, right, and which had enormous shadow. But there's also, right, crony sexuality, corrupt sexuality. Right? There's also, all forms of pornography, which are degraded pornography. But we don't dismiss sexuality, right? We say that it has an expression which doesn't capture its full beauty, its full gorgeousness, right? Its full sacredness in all of its forms. And the same thing's true with the voluntary exchange of ideas and the voluntary exchange of goods, right? That's what capitalism is. Capitalism is the voluntary exchange of energy, goods, information, right, in a way that creates prosperity and lifts all boats, right? And it is the force of innovation, right? The creative entrepreneurial force, right? The force of innovation and creativity, which actually lifts all boats, which actually is the engine of evolutionary transformation, right? Is fueled, right, primarily, right, by, right, capitalism, right? Most of the major ideas, from the airplane, right, to the cell phone, etc., right, didn't come from government panels, right? They came from, some form of private initiative, right, which was entrepreneurial at its core. So let's, just as an opening to our conversation, let's embrace entrepreneurship, right? Let's embrace, right, creativity. Let's embrace innovation, right? And let's liberate the entrepreneur from his or her own self-perception as being slightly psychotic, highly greedy, right, super narcissistic, completely self-involved, and a violation of the goodness, truth, and beauty of the cosmos, which is actually how entrepreneurs self-perceive. When I was at our mutual friend Eben's event, a year ago, Ifat, right, at Accelerate, where you were at the summer, and I was speaking to a group of about 500 entrepreneurs, and I talked to people about how they self-perceived, right, how I just described it, and all of those negative superlatives was actually right underneath the surface were those negative self-perceptions. But actually, and I'll turn it back to you, Lisa, and to Ifat, actually, we live in an entrepreneurial universe. Right? We live in it's a big sentence. We live in an entrepreneurial universe. The universe is entrepreneurial, right? Atoms see each other, and they want to create a new value proposition called molecules. And molecules see each other, and they want to create a new value proposition, right, called complex molecules, which is what we talked about last time, right? That is to say, the universe is entrepreneurial. It's seeking new connection, right? It's seeking, right, new ways of integrating. Ideas seek each other and engage in what Matt Ridley calls idea sex, right, which create through their own process of kind of Darwinian natural selection new ideas, which create new ideas, which create new ideas, right, which create a cumulative accumulation of intelligence, which is why human evolution operates different than animal evolution, right, because we have this kind of multiplication of ideas, right, this transmission of knowledge through cumulative idea sex, which creates, right, the world that we live in today with all of its beauty, with all of its dignity, with all of its, majesty, which is unequaled, right, anywhere, right, in the universe as we know it. So really to embrace creativity, to embrace my entrepreneurial inclination as an expression of an entrepreneurial cosmos, that's exciting.
So I have to interject here for a second. I know, Ifat, jump in whenever you want, Ifat, because you have awesome stuff. I know you have stuff to add here too. But these things that you throw out about how the self-perception that entrepreneurs perceive themselves as, I'm going to challenge you and say that is true for that is true. I see that is true for a certain generation of entrepreneurs, like maybe even the baby boomers, or maybe even my generation of the, I'm 43 years old, and some of us might think that way, but I believe that the millennials think differently. I live in a compound of 20 people, and most of them are 20-year-olds and early 30-year-olds, and they have a very different perception of entrepreneurialism than I did when I was 20. My daughter, who's 12, is reading a book called Your Mom Is Not Your Money, and she's creating a whole vision for herself of what it is that she wants to do and contribute in the world. So I'm challenging you a little bit on that idea, because I think that might be a generational thing. I don't know. What do you think?
I think there's three things happening, right? One is, the current, first off, thanks for sharing your age. I actually thought you were like 21, so I'm glad to see that you're legal, so that's awesome, right? But, I think there is a generational thing, but I don't think it's shifting in the way that you suggest, right? That is to say, right, millennials today, right, particularly, right, by the way, in the Bay Area, there's been a series of fabulous articles in the New Yorker, right, on the millennial generation, entrepreneurial generation in the Bay Area particularly, right? Yes, there's a desire to create, to innovate, right, but there's also a very, very real lack of a broader context, right? And I'm going to create my thing. I'm going to entrepreneur my thing, right? But it's very often not rooted in what I would call an evolutionary context. It's not rooted in the desire to commit to the evolution of goodness, truth, and beauty, right? It's like the hottest thing, in the Bay Area entrepreneurship is to be working on some new app, working on Uber, right? I'm working on some new app that's unbelievably exciting, right? But the fact that it doesn't actually contribute a true, real value to the world actually isn't interesting, right? What's completely hot is, does it work? Will it identify a market segment? And will it make me wealthy through this innovation? Right? That's actually not what we're talking about. Now that's beautiful. It's beautiful to kind of find a way to create wealth, but we're talking about entrepreneurship as conscious business, right? Conscious entrepreneurship, conscious capitalism, to borrow, right, Raj Sisodia and John Mackey's term, right? And conscious means that I'm contributing to the evolution of the good, the true, the beautiful, right? That I'm being heroic, right? That I view myself as having a heroic role. Right? I'm an entrepreneur standing at the abyss of darkness and saying, let there be light. Right? I'm actually accessing, right, my innovative ability. I'm actually feeling the creativity, the evolutionary creativity of the cosmos coming awake through me, and I'm interested in creating prosperity, right? Because prosperity creates dignity and creates possibility in education in order to create growth, in order to create transformation, right? In other words, let me say it differently, okay? What's life about? And this is the entrepreneurial kind of credo that's missing. And let's just in 3 sentences, what's life about? So life is pleasure. Life's about pleasure. Life's all about pleasure. That's the only thing that really counts. 1. 2, pleasure is about growth, transformation, right? The highest pleasure is growth. Meaning, let's take it from a kind of superficial masculine perspective, right? After the guy has basically used up every toy and slept with everyone in the world, right? What's he going to do next if he's immortal? He's immortal. Nothing left. What are you going to do? Right? Or what are you going to do? So you're going to grow. You're going to grow. And the only left to do is grow. Right? And it's after you've used up the superficialities, you actually want to stay with one person. You want to go deeper. You want to grow. Right? You want to grow. Right? And that, of course, is true for the feminine and the masculine. Right? You want to grow. You want to transform. So life is pleasure. The highest pleasure is transformation, growth. 3, right? The highest pleasure of transformation is when your transformation catalyzes the transformation of the whole story. When you realize your transformation is not just personal, but your transformation is transforming the whole thing. 3 principles of existence. So if that becomes an entrepreneurial credo for the millennial generation, well, we're in business, and one of the things we're talking about in the Center for Integral Wisdom with a bunch of great young millennials is exactly that. How do we actually harness the kind of unconscious entrepreneurial creativity that still dominates the millennial world, right, and actually make it conscious and alive? And so I'm kind of moving towards prosperity, not merely to create accumulation of wealth, but to create the dignity that comes from wealth, which allows for further growth and transformation, which allows for the evolution, right, of goodness, truth, and beauty. Last sentence, if you'll allow me. The biggest lack of the millennial generation is the lack of a framework. There's no framework. There's no framework of meaning. There's no narrative. I mean, the only grand narrative for the millennials is that there is no grand narrative. Right? And therefore, let's rip apart any grand narrative that exists because it's dogmatic, and they fail to distinguish between dogma and dharma is the best meta-narrative we have available today of the vision. So thank you just for your grace and allowing me to kind of get that whole idea out, and complete over to you.
Ifat, looks like you have something to say.
You know what? You're talking about this, and I remember the last visit to Mountain View at Google. And what's very interesting about the Google setup, right, is that everything is available to everyone. Laundry, the best food at Wawa, whatever you want, right? Everything is available, and there is no real competition, right? It's more of a collaborative thing. And the way Google operates in the world, it's not like, okay, let me be the best thing. It's more, how do we all create something that benefits the whole? So with the Automotive Alliance, they got all the car manufacturers that wanted to be a part of it, and now they're putting Android, which is a free software, right, to work with everyone to get the better equipment out there, and then the best relationship. So the Google model is not, they're becoming the best by collaborating with everyone else, right, and offering the best of everything that they can to everyone for free, right? So it's a very interesting model, and I was asking a few of the employees there, it's like, do you lose the competition, right? Like, do you come in with the mindset of, I just want to advance, right, through the ranks and the layers and just be, I don't know, the next Google CEO, or does, because everything is available to you, because you don't need to keep chasing the money and the food and everything is there, do you start now working on the meaning? Like, how do I improve something? How do I make something better? How do I contribute more to the world? And great programs are coming out of that, because this is really the hiring process that they were sharing is that if you want to move from one division to another, they don't even tell you what the salary is. They want to know that you really are passionate about doing that role, and if you are, then you're going to get there. But the money is part of it, but it's not the most important aspect of your work and your life and your contribution. So it's very interesting that only Google managed to do that. I don't know anyone, maybe you know, Mark, who else managed to create that type of an environment that is also entrepreneurship, but also very collaborative.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think that Google is a great model. Google is built on massive profits, right? So that's where, Google is in a very unusual situation, right, where it's kind of, pretty much cornered one major market. It's aggressively expanding, you know, in any number of other areas with enormous, you know, I would say entrepreneurial, driven for profit, you know, motivation, right? Which then allows it, right, to then, you know, kind of go back and pour some of that surplus into creating a highly collaborative environment, which is fantastic, right? You know, and a collaborative environment requires two things to work, and I think Google does it well, the balance. It requires, on the one hand, uniqueness, right? In other words, it's not, Google's never about the communist idea, if I can borrow that, or the socialist idea, which destroyed economies of, well, we're all a team, no one stands out. Actually, Google actually very carefully monitors the individual creative contribution of different people to different processes. So there actually is a clear metrics happening in Google, so that it's not just that a team wins, but it's very clear if you innovated, if you contributed, if you stepped up. So the individual's not getting lost in Google, right? But rather, unique self becomes, what I call unique self, becomes the technology of creating an evolutionary we space. Right? An evolutionary we space can't be created by separate selves who are just competing, as you point out, Yifat. It can't be created by kind of a Northern California spirit rock, we're all enlightened, we're all one, true self, we're all part of the same true self, we're all blended in, or by a socialist homogenization, right, of the individual into the one state or the one group, right? Evolutionary we space, which if I can, you know, use that term, which is what you're describing, evolutionary we space is formed by unique selves being radically unique, puzzle pieces, if you will, but then experience themselves as completing the larger puzzle and then actually evolving the larger puzzle, becoming evolutionary unique selves. And that, I think, Google is kind of working on creating that evolutionary we space as a fantastic, fantastic model, which is awesome. Which is awesome. Lisa, you disappeared for a second. We were looking for you.
I know. I wanted to pull up, I'm going to back up for a second and just pull up a comment by Barbara Sherry Rose. She said, if you offered me $200 million per week to give up all I'm doing, I would simply tell you to keep your money. Nothing can buy the joy of making the most positive difference for humanity. Nothing.
Amen.
Thank you, Sherry.
Yes, Barbara Sherry Rose. Yes, sister. Shout it out. Give us the witness. Absolutely. That's 1,000,000,000% correct. Right? And you know, and that's where, again, where Google has a division which Sergey is now heading up, Sergey Brin, which is focusing now, you know, on kind of meta innovations for humanity, you know, kind of defying death. You know, they've got a whole kind of interesting division like that. You know, Google's initial, but I think where Google's power is, and that's going to back, Lisa, to your kind of question about, you know, where you started about conscious business. Google's power is they've articulated a conscious, right, vision for their business, which is organizing the world's information and making it available, right, in the most democratic way across the board. And that's Google's mission. Now, that's a pretty clear mission. Now, that mission is not about, like Apple, it's not about the beautiful, but it's about the true. Right? It's making the true available, right, in the best possible way, right? And every company, Apple, isn't really about the true. It's not really about the good, right? Apple's more about the beautiful. It's about elegance. Right? It's about, you know, kind of that. You know, other companies are about, you know, can be about the good, right? Organizing goodness, right, in some way, right? Others about more about the heroic. Right, certain space companies that are kind of, Richard Branson's work now, and trying to chart space about kind of the heroic quest. But in other words, you've got to be organized in one of those core categories. Are you trying to? What's the articulation of your conscious vision as a company? Right. What's your mission statement? What are your core values? And then that animates, right, your energy. Right. That creates a strange attractor. Wow, we're moving someplace. We're getting something done.
So, Mark, why is it that we're living in a society where we have really big gaps between the haves and the have-not, between information, who has information, who doesn't, access to resources? Is the conversation that we're having right now only applicable to people who have all their needs met, have roof over their head, they have the money in the bank, all that stuff, and now they can take the time and start thinking consciously about how they're benefiting the world? Or, those who don't have access to everything can use that idea to actually elevate themselves into a place where they can start thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, you thought, love you madly. I mean, that is the question, and I'll turn it over to Lisa afterwards, right? But basically, it's a really, that's the ultimate inquiry, meaning, is the conversation about conscious capitalism, conscious business, right, limited only to those who've already made it? The answer is absolutely not. Conscious business, conscious capitalism is the best way to make it. Right? It's the best way to create a successful firm. Whether you're a solo-preneur, I think it's a new word I learned from Lisa today, right? You're involved. I think that means your own business, running your own, entrepreneurial kind of movement, right? It's the best way for anybody, right, to make it in the world on any level, right? That's one. We'll get back to that. But two is, we also have to remember, right, that, right, which is why I'm not a pure libertarian, right, like my friend John Mackey, right? I believe that government is actually important in the process, and there needs to be a correct dialectical balance between government and individual entrepreneurship. On the one hand, regulation, right, over-regulation, right, or regulation kind of brought about by kind of crony capitalism. Regulations are also often corrupt, right, in the way they're brought about, and the way they're implemented, and the way they're deployed, right, and excessive and destructive of entrepreneurship. But no regulation, right, is also an impossibility and an absurdity, right? The same way, my friend the Dalai Lama, who kind of, believes in a peaceful world, has said to me, more than once, hello, right, like, of course we need an army in the world. Right? You can't have a world without an army today. The notion of an idea without regulation is absurd. We need regulation for exactly the reason you pointed out, Yifat, because we still have, almost 2 billion people in the world, right, who are starving, right? Yeah. And we actually need to create a way, right, of distributing resources in a way which is more equitable, right? In a pure, right, kind of right-wing Republican, kind of capitalism, which says, well, if you haven't pulled yourself up by your bootstraps, well, then you're probably immoral, right, is absurd, right? People come from different life circumstances, and we need to create possibilities, right, for everyone in the best way we can. But those possibilities should be based on inviting everyone to participate entrepreneurially in the maximal way in their own transformation, right, in their own evolution. And what we need to do is, what I'm really saying here is something limited but essential, which is really what Lisa invited, and I think beautifully, which is we've got to first reclaim the technologies of business, the technologies of entrepreneurship as sacred technologies. Right? These are not compromises with a vaunted socialism. Socialism failed. Right? Communism was a complete mess. If there's anything the 20th century told us, that's what it told us. That actually unleashing uniqueness, unleashing creativity, right? Unleashing entrepreneurial possibility, right, in a sacred way, honoring those, right, as essential expressions of the cosmos coming alive in you, is utterly and radically essential. We need to free those sacred divine technologies from being labeled as greedy or selfish or self-indulgent. We need to reclaim the place of agency in relation to communion. Once we do that, we then re-embrace communion on the other side and say, okay, how do the most people get involved in this story? What's our responsibility as the strong, right, to the weak? Right? Not in a way which is indulgent or disrespecting, but it's empowering. So that's our conversation. That's why I'm not a libertarian. Right? That's why we need to create a politics of entrepreneurial love. And a politics of entrepreneurial love, right, is the beginning, right, of the next step. And entrepreneurial love really is, right, evolutionary love. That's what it is. Right? Evolutionary love, the eros of entrepreneurship. That's the initiating and driving force of reality itself. And as you can feel, what we're trying to do at the center is articulate a new language. And Lisa, you're a clear reader of languages, so I'm kind of bowing, to the gracefulness of your picking up on it, because you did. What lit up in you is you actually sensed, because clearly you're a deep thinker and reader. You're exactly right. We're trying to articulate a new language around this, and that because we need new languages to become strange attractors, right? To actually evolve the source code, right? To attract us into the future.
Right. So what I want to do is come back to this concept that you've written a book about, that you talk about a lot, and you have a website on, is the unique self. And that what's so important in all of this, in this idea of conscious business, is to understand that we're interdependent upon all these systems working together. The individual as the unique self, the business itself as a unique self with a unique identity and a unique purpose, and then the stakeholders or the community at large, or how the business affects and is interlocked and intertwined with the rest of the planet, if we speak of that. So because you have talked about it several times here, this unique self, and you've alluded to it, and you've said some things about it, and I would love if you can speak a little bit more to this awakening and the unique self, individually, business, and then the stakeholders, and how that all fits into this discussion.
Awesome. No, completely great. So let's go back a couple of steps. That's a fantastic place to take this inquiry now. So one is I want to just refer to, and maybe my colleague Leslie, who's the Director of Communications at the Center for Integral Wisdom, who was with us on the line, maybe we can send to Lisa. I'm thinking that Forbes magazine piece, that the interview that Michael did with John Mackey and I on unique self and business, where John and I kind of coined together this term of the unique self of a business. Right, so let's just kind of go back for a second and just give like a couple of kind of source code pieces. And the reason source code pieces, by the way, matter to people listening, why don't we just kind of, why do we go backwards and give you the deep structure? It's part of respecting people. If people want to be Jedi Knights of ideas, if we can borrow a term from Star Wars, they need to understand the structures of ideas. And people are not stupid. Right? People are wise. Right? They've got good minds, good hearts, and you give a person the source code structure of an idea, they can actually work it, they can evolve it, and contribute to it in a big way. So here's the source code structure. Both in terms of the individual and in terms of a business. Let's start with the individual. We need to make a split between what we might call separate and unique. And I devoted an entire book to kind of make that split, which was a huge mistake in pretty much every Enlightenment book over the last 2,000 years, and certainly, you know, in every Enlightenment context in Northern California, or almost all of them teaching, failed to make this split. So the idea was, become no self, right? Get out of your materialistic, egoic, you know, go to Spirit Rock, hang out, meditate, right, and get beyond, right, your separate self and all of your kind of sense of being unique and differentiated. Like, get all that preferences, get that out of the way, realize you're part of the one. Okay? Well, that's a really good first step. But if that's the end of the story, it's an utter disaster because it's based on a false distinction, right? Excuse me, on a failure of distinction between, right, separateness and uniqueness. Meaning, said really simply, my name is Lisa, right? I moved beyond my sense of being a skin-encapsulated ego, right? A contracted Lisa, kind of just trying to raise my 12-year-old daughter and kind of figure out which one of those 20-year-olds I've got to avoid, you know, in the complex, and which ones, you know, I'm interested in, and how am I going to build my business and get interstate coaching moving and kind of move along, right? I move beyond that kind of, and I kind of step into, I'm meditating, I'm part of the one. You know, my friend Gangaji, who used to go to kind of to San Francisco, Gangaji's in town, and she's awesome, and I'm kind of meditating with her, and I say, wow, I'm suffering, and she says to me on her satsang couch, who is it that's suffering? And my individual identity disappears, and I'm kind of part of the one. Great first step. But if you stop there, you're crazy, right? Because actually, although you're not a separate self, although Lisa and Yifat and Mark and Leslie are all part of the same true self, and therefore we can love each other, and therefore we're all part of the same reality, the same essence, the same Tao, the same Buddha nature lives in all of us. We're not actually separate, right? That's true, but, right, we are not all only true self. It's not just that our true self is the true essence that unites us, the true self which is the singular that has no plural. We're also unique selves. And actually, Lisa is an irreducibly unique expression of the seamless code of the universe. So we're all part of the seamless code of the universe, for sure. Gorgeous. That blows your mind, literally, right? Breaks your heart open, shatters you into 1,000 pieces of, you know, undulated joy, and, right, Lisa's an irreducibly unique expression of the love intelligence and love beauty that initiated and animated all of reality, that is reality having a Lisa experience. And until I recognize that, right, I'm in trouble. Because as long as I'm a separate self with Lisa, I'm saying, man, why am I not writing interstatecoaching.com? Hello? Why am I not writing this Google Plus? Hello? Why are my teeth not as like awesome as her teeth? Like, I'm kind of devastated, right? I'm kind of jealous the whole time, and like, why is she like better friends with Yifat? She's known her for longer than I have, and all that stuff. And then if I'm true self, oh, I'm merged with Lisa in the one, but we have no relationship. But if I can get to unique self, I can say, wow, and I met this new person, Lisa, that my friend Tanya had mentioned to me, and she is awesome. She's smart, she's, you know, wise, she's beautiful, she's creative, she's entrepreneurial, and I get to be really excited about meeting reality, having a Lisa experience, and be in devotion, because here I've met this new unique self that's actually doing something and gifting something in the world that MarcGafni can never do. Impossible. No way I can give Lisa's unique gifts, and that's the basis of our friendship. That's the basis of our, right, of our coming together. Then when Yvette joins us, right, who kind of, kind of made it all the way from Israel after doing the army, right? And it's got her kind of unique Israeli style and her kind of Google Plus go-to innovative kind of creative kind of brilliance there in Austin, Texas, making it happen, right? And she adds her unique self to the mix. And then Leslie kind of steps in, right? Kind of doing the rock opera at Burning Man kind of on the side and running a couple of albums and running communications at Center for Integral Wisdom. And the four of us get together and we create an evolutionary we space. We're all serving each other's, right, irreducible, unique creativity and creating a larger vision together. Then we begin to have an entrepreneurial evolutionary we space. Right? So unique self, which you point to, right? Unique self is the core technology of entrepreneurship.
And then when you talk like that, it makes me think that everybody's place within a business, or whether it's a 2-person business or a 200-person business, your value, the value that you bring is irreplaceable because you're unique, and there's no competition, and that's one thing that I have found here in Google Plus. Now that Yvette and I are going to be like champion the Google Plus, is the spirit of collaboration that is there because we acknowledge and see each other's uniqueness brings. I can't even articulate the way that I've experienced it, but I'm getting what you're saying. So,
get this. You just said something so important before we'll go to Yvette, but I want to just get what you just said. You said I can't even articulate, right, what it's about. That is what lets you know that you're having a genuine experience of spirit. You can't quite put it in words, but there's actually a lived experience, right, of a new reality, a new structure of consciousness that's unavailable at the level of separate self, but it comes online when you actually wake up as part of the one, and then you wake up even more deeply post-spirit rock, right, as a unique expression of the one, irreducibly unique. And your uniqueness is not just a function of your conditioning, as the Enlightenment teachers tell you, and they're all my friends, right? It's not just a function of your psychological, social, and cultural conditioning. No, your uniqueness is an expression of your essence. And that's the source of your creativity. You are irreducibly unique, and your joy is a byproduct of not being an extra on the set, because what's your worst nightmare? When I was talking to my friend Dave Logan, who's a great guy, who wrote a book called Tribal Leadership, and Dave said to me, before he started to read Unique Self, he said, "Why does this matter?" He said it matters because this addresses the human being's worst nightmare. The most dreadful nightmare, after torture, of course, right? But our most dreadful nightmare is being an extra on the set. I don't really matter. Like, oh my God.
It's sort of like
exactly.
My fiance and I talk about that a lot. Like the person's worst nightmare is to feel like they're alone and unloved and don't matter or have any meaning.
Right. Don't matter. Right?
Yeah, just don't matter. Nobody cares.
Right, and then what happens
when we talk about depression, that's what that is that feeling of I don't make a difference in this world. I have no meaning.
I love your fiance. He's awesome. Your fiance is awesome. What's his name, by the way, or her name?
Tim.
So I'm trying. It's a Bay Area question.
Yeah, I know.
You gotta be like a little careful. Why'd you assume him? You racist, right? Okay. So what do we get to know his name?
Tim.
So Tim is awesome. Tim is awesome because Tim's got it. He's got it like. I mean, Tim just identified, or you through Tim, or you and Tim together, the essence of depression. And then a student and friend of mine, Marty Cooper, works on depression, actually in the Bay Area. I don't know if you know Marty, right? But depression is, we did a series of dialogues on depression and unique self. And depression is replaceability. Right? The experience clinically, the etiology of depression clinically is futility. Right? And my life doesn't matter. I can't affect anything. And what is love? Right? Love is the experience of mattering. I matter infinitely to my 12-year-old daughter. I matter infinitely, right, to Tim, but it's more than that. You matter infinitely in a different way to Yvette, right, and to Tanya. And as we get to know each other, to Leslie and to Mark, right, because our love lists are too short. Right? Love means, right, I perceive your infinite uniqueness, your infinite specialness, and I'm in devotion to it. Like, yes.
Yeah. And for me, my experience of love is through whether it's my friends, Yvette, or Mark, or Tim, my fiancé, or my daughter, is that it is God expressing through Lainey, my daughter, to me. And when she wraps her arms around me and says, I love you, it's God saying, I love you.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah, that's it.
It's not Lainey, it's God expressing through Lainey to me, it's love. And at that point, you realize, oh my gosh, this is it's again that thing that you can't articulate.
Right. And it's not right. So it's not just Lainey. I mean, you've got it. You're our Dharma teacher for the day, right? Thank you so much, right? It's not just Lainey. You've said the whole thing. It's not just Lainey as separate self loving you, right? And it's not Lainey also only as true self, part of the one loving you through Lainey. It's the unique quality of Laininess transmitting the personal address of reality, embracing you and knowing your name and recognizing you, right? That's unique self. That's exactly it. And so there's a unique self encounter, right, between Lisa and Lainey that's unlike any other, meaning, and here's like this just blows your heart and mind, meaning, here's how you could say it. And I'll say it in terms that the 16th century thinker Ibn Gabai, right, said it. He would say, God needs Lainey's service, right? God needs Lainey because God can only express a certain quality of loving through Lainey. Like, wow. And imagine what that might begin to be. We start taking the digital world seriously and becoming conscious about it and creating, kind of a multitude of relationships through digital intimacy.
Absolutely. And that's where this whole conversation comes back to conscious business and how we can affect and be participants in the awakening of human, meaning our individual unique self, and collective awakening, the everybody together. And I know Ifat has been sitting there, so I'm going to actually pass that over to Ifat. I just wanted to add that piece there.
Total. By the way, are we invited, all of us, to the wedding? We just want to know.
Yes, we're going to actually have a reception here at the compound in West Oakland.
Oh my God!
I think we're going to get. Yeah,
we're Jewish. We say Mazel Tov.
Mazel Tov. Yeah. Okay.
That is awesome. Leslie, we got to go. Bring the gang. Oh my God. We won't ask for dates on a public Google Hangout. That's too much. But okay.
Okay.
It's actually everything that you're talking about is really bringing it back to the conscious business. Because if you don't know who you are and what your voice is and what your gift is and how you can share it, then how can you build a conscious business that actually elevates everyone? And I think the biggest challenge with all this social media and the ranking and the numbers and all that stuff is that we begin with comparing ourselves to, Lisa is already doing a show and this is how she does a show, so I need to do my show like her or I'm not going to be popular or something like that. And we compare ourselves to others rather than going back, finding the unique voice and then letting that out and build a community around it and a business around it. And so I think what's missing from this entire discussion is how do you go back to yourself and find who you are and remove all the schooling and all the beautiful public education that we got and find exactly who you are and be open to express that and share it with the world.
That's awesome. Meaning, how do I identify my unique self, right? Mm-hmm. And I hate when someone says this in public, but I'm going to do it, and I apologize for it in advance. I happen to have written a book about that. It's a terrible thing to say. I apologize insincerely, right? But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, you thought. And really, the topic of the book, Your Unique Self: The Radical Path to Personal Enlightenment, was which my good friend Ken Wilber wrote a long introduction to, and some 50 kind of thought leaders kind of came on board and endorsed, because everyone really realized that this changes the enlightenment game. I mean, Michael Murphy, who's kind of my mentor, big brother, has just been a delightful human being in my life the last 5 years. We started something we call the Bad Boys Club, which is a different conversation, right? And he can drink more than I can for sure. Right? Michael's fantastic, and among his other contributions to the world, he founded Esalen on his grandmother's property back in 1962. And Michael, said correctly, I think, that the unique self idea it changes the game, right? It's a psychoactive idea because it actually changes the entire conversation around enlightenment and around what the purpose of our lives is. Why are we alive? Right? We're alive to give our unique gift. Right? We're alive, right, to write the poem that only we can write, right, to sing the song that only we can sing, right, to actually live the way of loving, living, laughing, and being that's ours and ours uniquely to live, right? And from that uniqueness, we get not to a narcissism, we get not to kind of a self-inflated narcissism, but we get to a kind of a community, because uniqueness, right, like a puzzle piece, right, is the currency of connection. So now the question is, right, how do I identify my unique self? And I say this actually not, I was kind of, self-deprecating and facetious initially, but I really do, urge everyone, if you have a moment, pick up the book, Your Unique Self. Les, you can give us kind of the way to get to it, and you can find your way, for sure in that direction. The entire book is about, addressing that question, right? But let me just give you like a quick 10 seconds and then back to Lisa. Quick 10-second, kind of down and dirty kind of look at it. Take a piece of paper. On the piece of paper, make 3 columns, right? And in the 3 columns, top of one column, put your unique pleasure. 1, 2, 3. What are your 3 unique pleasures? Second column, put your unique gift, your unique talent. 1, 2, 3. Third, put unique need. What's the unique need in your immediate circle, right? In the circle of your own intimacy and influence. Put 1, 2, 3. Okay? And then 4, last one, put your unique personal need. Not the unique need in your circle, but your unique need as a person. Right? 1, 2, 3. 4 across, right? So it's unique pleasure, it's unique gift or capacity or talent, that's 2. It's unique need in your circle, and it's your personal unique need. Do 1, 2, 3 on each of them. Circle the top ones. You'll get at least the beginning of a glimmer into your unique self. That was just to really address that, just as a kind of 1, 2, how do you start it, right here, right now. Yeah.
I love that.
Go? There she is. There she is.
I love that. I'm going to pull up a couple of comments because we're getting the comments are starting to flow in here, and then Ifat has some, I can tell Ifat has something to say, so I'll bring her up too. So I want to say Dave Moore here says, we are all dots on the planet, and only when we connect all of the dots will we see the bigger picture.
Awesome. Beautiful.
A couple. Linda says, Mark and Lisa, I love your getting Bay Area consciousness into the wider world conversation in this Hangout on Air, and that's why I'm here on Hangouts on Air, Linda, to bring this conversation out into the world. And then lastly, I'm going to read this one. It's pretty long from Barbara, but I think it's pretty profound. Barbara says, Ifat, to address the haves and have-nots, 3 years and 20 days ago, I was homeless, bleeding with a title of best-selling author. I had to pick myself up again, have surgery, and move back into creation for uplifting humanity. Then everything started to get better. I hope this brings help to anyone who feels down. You can rise, right? You can only rise from within, from your heart and mind, combined with the co-creating and helping others. So I wanted to put those in, and Ifat, I'll hand it over to you because I could see you had something to say.
Oh no! First of all, Barbara, that's amazing, and it is true. And I was Mark just sharing with Lisa in the green room how I was listening to a podcast, and the more podcasts I'm hearing, a lot of people who are self-made, they all got to the point where it's like, okay, I got the money, now what? And everyone is like going back to what makes me happy, and the happiness is in the freedom to do whatever you want when you want it with whomever you want. And so to me, it's not just the freedom, it's actually having the relationship and the people to do whatever you want with. And it all comes back to how we are connected to each other and how together we are creating stuff that elevates and helps other people. Otherwise, you're in a void, you're lonely, you're not affecting, you don't matter. So finding yourself and then finding the community that actually can benefit from your gifts. I find that in Hangouts, of course, and in the Google stuff, but I find that this is really where we are going with the world, finding the meaning, because a lot of stuff is already available.
And yeah. I'll add in, and then I'll hand it over to you, Mark. What you speak of to there, right there, Ifat, is this big movement that I see happening in the realm of coaching, right? So that's my niche. I'm in the coaches everywhere, and everybody's calling themselves a conscious business owner as a solopreneur, which is what I was saying at the beginning with you, Mark. So there's this identification with a lot of coaches out there as being mission-driven, as being evolutionary, as being change agents and change makers. And I think this is what you speak to, Ifat, there. And so anyways, I just wanted to say that piece. And would be really curious to hear from your perspective, Mark, how does the solopreneur fit into this entire I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, at least it is to me, how the solopreneur fits in. But when we're talking of conscious business and people are thinking, oh, well, a business is, 200 people, not just one person. So how does this idea of individual within a company fit in? Do you have any ideas? I'm sure you have ideas.
No,
Do I even need to ask you if you have any ideas?
You are awesome. You are awesome. So let's circle back to one thing that Yifat said and then bring it directly into line with your inquiry. So Yifat, you said, this idea of success as being able to basically do anything you want with whoever you want, whenever you want, and then you add to that, Yifat, one, you got to make sure that you've got people that you have good relationships to do it with, right? And so that's all great. That's completely great. Let me just perhaps with your permission, just add a dimension to it, which will bring us to Lisa's inquiry, which is you've got to know what you want, right? Actually, what we call in the 16th century, we called it berur. And Safed in Israel in the 16th century, there was a school of Kabbalists who talked about berur, B-E-R-U-R, which means the clarification of desire, right? The clarification of desire, actually to clarify your desire. Buddhism, right, in its popular forms gave desire a bad name, but actually Buddha in the original Pali Canon didn't speak against desire. He said, actually, I believe the quote was, have few desires, but have great ones. Right? It's wonderful. Right? Have few desires, but have great ones. Desire actually is the life force of the cosmos. Desire is the evolutionary eros coming awake. And the evolutionary eros comes awake in three ways. And its first level, it comes awake in sexual desire. So sexuality is an expression of the evolutionary eros, right? And of course, it needs right place, right time, right person. That's not the topic of this hangout, right? Then the next level, desire comes on board as innovation. The evolutionary impulse awakens first as sexuality, then as innovation. And then finally, the evolutionary impulse awakens as transformation. Those are the three levels of awakening. Now, the individual, right? So I've got to be able to identify my desire. Right, I've got to clarify my sexual desire, like every person does. I've got to clarify my desire to innovate. Where do I want to innovate? In what part of my life? And innovate doesn't mean technology, by the way. Whenever people say innovate technology, you say, oh, those are the technological people. I mean, I can't technologize. I can't change a light bulb, and no light bulb jokes, right? But just like, whoa. But innovation is in culture and consciousness and relationship. And finally, I want to transform. I want to actually transform in a full way. So all of those three, right, those three core expressions of desire, right, come to play when a person charts their life. So a person might say, I want to be, again, I'm learning this term from you, Lisa, a solopreneur, right? Meaning I want to actually I want to kind of turn my life into an entrepreneurial success, which both yields prosperity, right, which gives me dignity financially, and which yields kind of a way to express my creativity and to be a contribution. Right, to be a contribution in the world. And I actually can't think of anything more gorgeous, because I think being an awake, alive, creative, conscious solopreneur, right, is the interior essence, right, of the shadow, which we call in public kind of branding, or creating your digital personality. But branding is actually not about the interior of it. It's about kind of, let me just brand myself. Right? Let me create kind of my digital image, which is not what you're talking about. You're talking about something far, far deeper, far more profound. How do I turn my life into a blessing? How do I turn my life into a prayer? Right? How do I turn my life into a contribution? How do I turn my life into a stand, right, for my unique contribution and gift to a larger picture? So the solopreneur isn't actually solo in the end. The solopreneur is actually filled with soul, which connects them, right, through their entrepreneurship, right, to the larger context, and that's the beginning of evolutionary we space. That's the beginning of what we might call, last sentence, right, a unique self-symphony. Unique self-symphony, a symphony of unique selves, each giving their unique gifts, living their unique lives, and together, right, unleashing a force of creativity and innovation, the likes of which the world has never seen, right? A bottom-up solution as opposed to top-down, a self-organizing universe. That's the next step.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's like the crescendo there for me,
that's
of it all. It really is. It just speaks to all of it, and thank you for that. That was really wonderful. Wow, we're already coming to the end of this hour, and it went by so quick. And you have an amazing project that you spoke to of in the beginning, the Success Summit. And as I said, we're sort of coming to the end of the show. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Success Summit, what that project is about, and how people can find out about it?
Well, the Success Summit, right, is an independent project which about 40 people are partnering in. So you can look at the Success 3.0 website and see kind of a list of kind of 40 teachers and speakers. It's a fantastic project, right, and it's a vision, right, of success that all 40 of those people are getting together to articulate this new vision of success in the world. And people like John Mackey and Ken Wilber, Michael Beckwith will be there, Moby will be there, Michael Fronte will be there. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. Julia Orman is coming. Tony Shea's coming. There's just an incredible group of Evan Pagan. I mean, Evan's going to be wonderful. Kate Maloney. There's an incredible group of people who are coming together and are all owning this together, right? It's actually a true collaborative effort to actually articulate a new vision of success in the world. And you can look up Success 3.0 online, right, and you'll find it. You'll be able to register, right? It's just one of those all-time amazing, once-in-a-lifetime gatherings where the commitment is actually to change the source code in that weekend. So I'm, privileged to be in that group of awesome human beings.
And I did put that, just for everybody viewing, I put that link already in the description of this Hangout. So you can go down underneath Mark's name. I have all the links where you can get a hold of him. And one of those is the link you'll see. It says Success Summit, the Success Summit link. So you'll see that there. So wrapping up here, you guys, thank you so much, Mark, for once again coming on the show and being a part of this little mini-series. So wonderful to have this type of discussion with you, which I think is super important at this time in the evolution of our individual awakening and collective awakening. It's just, I think it's cracking open a lot of people right now. Just to have the discussion and invite the discussion awakens those aspects within ourselves that need to be awakened, or that are ready and longing for and looking for the awakening. So thank you. And Yvette, thank you, sister, for your gorgeous, beautiful, delightful smile and awesome spirit and your infinite intelligence that you always bring to the space. You always have the most amazing questions and bring such great value to these types of discussions. So I really value you too in this discussion. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks to everybody that showed up live and in replay. So happy that you made it. Really value your contribution, your engagement in this discussion. We can continue this discussion in the comments below. We'll be sure to get back to you with the responses to those comments that you're putting down there. And you're watching Hangouts with Visionary Leaders. We'll be back again very soon. And once again, I'm Lisa Ingalls. You can find out more about me at www.innerstatecoaching.com to find out more about my programs and services. Otherwise, we'll see you all next time.
Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Yvette. Thank you, Leslie.
Thanks, guys.